Hello, everyone. Welcome back or welcome to Recovering Out Loud, the podcast where we get real about addiction and recovery. Today's guest is Sylvia Subirana. She's a clinical psychologist and head of content development at Unconscious Moderation, an app that helps people take control of their drinking and unlock more meaning, happiness, fulfillment in their lives. uses practical tools like hypnotherapy, journaling, and supportive community building exercises to guide users through lasting change. Today, we explore why moderation works for some and not for others, how hypnotherapy is helping rewire addictive behaviors, the science and stigma behind new recovery tools, the surprising power of journaling and self-discovery, facing fear, breaking old patterns, and learning to live intentionally. Listen, learn, and discover a new approach to changing your relationship with alcohol. Hello, Sylvia.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. We had a really good conversation before this, and I'm very interested in what you do and what your team does with regards to, not necessarily, when I started this podcast, alcohol moderation was not an option for me because I've tried many times, and I know a lot of people that have tried, and it just doesn't work for me. But I'm starting to realize that as I get on this journey more and talk to more people, that for one, the world doesn't revolve around me and not everybody feels and thinks the same way I do. But there's different paths up the recovery mountain, right? And one of the paths is through moderation, and through journaling and hypnotherapy, which I'm excited to get into today with you. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, Sylvia, and how you came into this field and what you guys do?
So I'm a clinical psychologist. I love learning about mental health and how different behaviors affect each person. And it's a very interesting world for me, like a very interesting field. I'm very passionate about it. And I started working a little bit, helping people understand how to have a better relationship with alcohol about a year and a half ago. And it was when I realized that I had a lot of knowledge because I haven't drunk in around 6 years. I don't have a set date because it was very organic for me. It was 6 years and a half ago. And I learned a lot during this time that I haven't drunk. So I decided to combine my knowledge in psychology, mental health, and all that with my knowledge in the field of living life without drinking. I never had an addiction. I never had a dependency on alcohol, but it's true that I started drinking because everybody else around me started drinking, and I thought that it was just what I had to do, what everybody does, right? So I realized that I was forcing something that was not working for me because my body was just reacting very, very poorly to it. I had a gut infection dealing to that. And like after years of using alcohol, my body was telling me signs of this is not working for you. But I just kept ignoring it because everybody else was drinking, right? So what was I supposed to do? I never questioned it. And when I finally questioned it and I was like, okay, this is not for me. This is not how I'm supposed to live life. I realized that I was just like completely avoiding what my body was telling me and what my mind was telling me. And it's very, very powerful to learn what your body is telling you and to live a life more aligned with what you actually want to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, the first step in that is noticing what your body is telling you, right?
Exactly.
That took me a long time to fathom, just because I was so preoccupied with other things, right? We were having an interesting conversation, off air about you live in Barcelona, or you're near Barcelona in Spain.
Yeah.
And, I thought it was really funny because I didn't realize this until I came into recovery, that I used to think that everybody partied, everybody did drugs. It was everywhere. It's just what people did, like you said, right? I'm going to do it just because other people are doing it and I want to fit in. You were telling me how you don't see any drugs and you don't see that lifestyle because you're not in it. And I always think that's interesting because I have the same experience now living in downtown Toronto. There's a lot of drugs and a lot of places and parties that I'm not exposed to anymore. Like what a, what a miracle, you stop drinking and stop using drugs and you find this community of people that are just living a different lifestyle. And I can tell
Yeah.
you, I haven't seen drugs in quite a while now, right? I always find that interesting. Um, so,
Definitely.
so you're you work with the Unconscious Moderation app, which is available on iPhone and Play Store.
Mhm.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what inspired the creation of the Unconscious Moderation app? And yeah,
So
cool.
it was it was created because well, alcohol is everywhere. We were talking about drugs and everything, and drugs, because they're not legal, at least in many countries in the world, drugs are not legal. Um, you don't really see them as easily as you see alcohol, but alcohol is everywhere. Is even in workplaces, like people drink to seal deals sometimes, So it's just amazing to think that something that is killing us is so normalized, and everybody is just like even judging you when you're not drinking,
Mhm.
right? So it was a group of a bit of like there's psychologists, there's different people that were starting to well realize that, and little by little more people added on that group, where we realized, okay, we need to target this, but there's many programs out there, but still this is a big issue that people don't really know how to address, right? Because yes, less people are drinking right now, and if you look at younger generations, they are not jumping in, like for example, as I said before, you just do it because everybody else does. Now there's more and more people that actually question it and decide not to drink. But of course that's happening now with younger generations. I'm in my late 20s, and I've had a very different upbringing, right? So um when we wanted to target, like, okay, how can we help people do it, we had a look at different programs, and then we realized that hypnotherapy had been used for many different addictions, many different conditions. Like it doesn't need to be an addiction, it could be like IBS, for example, for gut issues, and to treat anxiety and other things in general. And it had been proven very effective in all these different aspects, right? So we were like, okay, we cannot find a program that targets or that helps people rewire their relationship with alcohol with using hypnotherapy, right? So we implemented it, and then we combined the conscious work, because hypnotherapy, it touches the unconscious mind, but then we wanted to also work with the conscious mind. So that's why we also added journaling and other tools to complement it. And it's been proven that, well, very effective. And obviously the app was released only like 6 months ago, so we haven't seen long-term results yet, but our users have expressed that they're very happy with it, and they actually notice the changes, and they notice that it works.
That's amazing. Yeah. And, I appreciate that because not everybody that I've come into contact with in addiction and alcoholism is willing to go to meetings or to try. They have a bad experience with you know, social groups or rehab centers. There's a bit of a stigma around it for some people. And so I love apps. I've always loved apps. I think there's a lot of very useful apps out there. And this is, it's just a great way for people to kind of get involved without that big step into an uncomfortable position. Um, what makes Unconscious Mind's approach different from other moderations? I mean, you mentioned the hypnotherapy, but I started using the app and it was very user friendly. It asked a bunch of questions and got some background. But what kind of makes it different that you think? What makes it stand out?
I think, well, we haven't found any other programs that use hypnotherapy, and also the journaling that we use is um, it's very targeted to complement the journey, right? Whereas we've seen other programs that they do use journaling, but it's more generic. When we started, we we had generic questions and journaling, but now little by little we're learning, we're researching more, and then we're making it more specific to help people actually see better results, right? So I believe that with this unconscious work with hypnotherapy, that makes our program different. People see results a bit faster. Again, there are many different things out there, many tools that are effective and have been proven effective. But I think that giving even more options to people is very helpful, because what might work for me might not work for you. So maybe hypnotherapy works for me, but might not work for you, right? So given the possibility for people to try in different things, I think is very, very powerful and very helpful for people to try out new things. And this is definitely a new thing, hypnotherapy in treating alcohol consumption. And we also don't demonize or blame people that decide to moderate instead of quitting completely, because we've seen that many programs out there play with that blame and make you feel bad if you have a relapse or if you have one drink one day. And we understand that this is not a linear process. It's not as easy as just like deciding something and changing it and that's it. You are going to have falls, you're going to have obstacles in your way, and that is completely fine. It's part of the process. And actually, a lot of people say that it's been proven that when you are implementing a new habit or you're quitting a substance, you have withdrawal symptoms, and then you work through these, and then they get better. And then at one point, they get worse, and you're like, oh my God, they are so strong. But it's like the last push of those withdrawal symptoms. And then when you cross that wall or that obstacle, then you're going to feel like, okay, those withdrawal symptoms have just calmed down, and they lose their power a lot. So hypnotherapy just helps people go through this journey with a bit more of a calm state, because obviously these withdrawal symptoms can trigger a lot of anxiety as well, and a lot of like nervousness. So hypnotherapy helps you be a bit more calmed down, and those withdrawal symptoms also have less power, so they are not as as strong and as when you feel them, you need to actually act on them because they're painful even. But hypnotherapy helps you just reduce the power of these symptoms, so they're actually more manageable.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. As you were talking, I was thinking about the mental state always precedes the first relapse for me, right? And I love what you said about sometimes you just need to like hold on to the steering wheel and get through that last push, right? I do understand too that, for those listening, there is a medical component for a lot of people that are drinking a lot. And that's important too. And your app actually does go through that, right? Like it does have those disclaimers, and, it's not always safe for people to detox on certain substances, especially alcohol, without medical assistance and supervision. So, I want to state that that's important as well. I want to talk about this idea of fear. Because I think fear is the big motivator behind everything in my life. Every time I relapsed, there was some kind of fear down. And, this latest one that I went through, there was this fear of, I called it boredom at the time because I didn't understand that boredom is actually fear hiding itself. And most emotions are fear, right? I got to a point where I was kind of sitting in my car and life was just kind of ordinarily going along. There was nothing exciting, nothing too sad. And I came to this realization that I crave chaos to kind of distract myself from this fear and this hating myself and this uncomfortability with where I'm at. And I should be here. I should be doing this. Right. And so I came to the conclusion that it was just this fear of, oh my God, is this my life now? Am I going to just go on the rest of my life without any fun, any excitement? And I found that, no, that's not true. If I had just pushed through that last little bit, that last obstacle, as you say, and reached out for help and did something about it instead of did things my way, I think I would have been okay. But to your point, I needed to go through that again to hit another emotional and spiritual bottom, right? Like I needed to hit another bottom where I was like, okay, this recovery thing has to be my life today. It has to be. It's not a hobby for me. And this is my story. I can't moderate. I can't do any of these things. I need to remain completely abstinent, and I need to stay connected to people and to my higher power, my God, right? So this idea of fear, like why do you think fear of change is so powerful? And even though, even though we know deep down that it can help us.
So it's very powerful because we have internal patterns that keep us quote unquote safe, which maybe they're not keeping us safe, but our body, our mind thinks that we are being protected, right? Because when we were growing up, those type of behaviors actually kept us safe because of the situation that we were in, right? So we learn these patterns that might not be safe for an adult person, and they bring you to do different things. And for example, consuming alcohol, drugs, or scrolling on TikTok or watching Netflix, or many different things, right? Because sitting down with our emotions, understanding where everything comes from, can be very, very painful and scary as well, because then sometimes it's easier to say, okay, I don't know anything, then I'm not addressing anything, right? But actually that's what gets you stuck in the same place without moving. And I think that, as you said, that fear paralyzes you. I think it paralyzes everyone. We have this fear of missing out in general, of not doing what we're expected to do, of not achieving what we are expected to achieve, of not having a good life, not doing this, not doing that. And the pressure is just so strong that I think that pressure, that social pressure that we have from everyone around us, but also from social media, there's a lot coming from there, that we constantly see people having their best lives, and then you compare your life, and then you're like, my life is very blunt, it's very boring, right? Because look at these people having the best lives ever. So I think there's so many things that actually interfere in that pressure, and then that pressure creates that fear of, am I living my life correctly? So when that fear is very, very strong, it just paralyzes you, and you are not able to do anything about it because it's so strong that you don't know where to start. And there's also that, so there's that, and then there's what I was talking about before, the patterns and all that. We feel like that what we've been doing till now is our safe space, or it's our normality, right? It's something that we can control. And when we start creating shifts, or having new habits, or stop, or reducing, or completely stopping to have some behaviors, or some drugs or alcohol, or like other substances, we don't know what's coming on the other side. We don't understand, like our mind cannot understand that it can be actually better. We are stuck in this, okay, I don't know what's going on, or what's going to happen in, I don't know, 6 months, a year, 5 years from now, but I know what's happening right now, and I know that the situation right now, I can control it. But again, this situation right now can be absolutely destroying you, but you have that feeling of control. And again, we are always looking for things that we can control. We hate, as humans, uncertainty and things that we cannot control, and they are out of our decision. And again, we have, like in our lives, there's so little that we can actually control. We think that we have more tools than we actually have. Life just goes on, right? And you have to adapt to it and understand that life changes constantly. We cannot stay in the same state only because of fear, because eventually what you're not changing, you're choosing. You're actually choosing not to change. So actually, you're actually like little by little your life will change, and then you actually adapt those behaviors to those changes, right? So getting stuck into that, I don't want to change, I just want my life to be exactly how it is, it's actually not going to happen, because it cannot happen. Life is changing constantly.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. I'm happy you mentioned the illusion of control, because as it says, as I've heard so many times before, the great illusion that I can drink like other people. I'll try that a million times till Sunday until I can figure it out, because you're right. It's like there's so much in the world I can't control. What do you mean I can't control my drinking and the way I feel? Like there's already all this other stuff, and then I come home and I have to feel this way. Like that's so uncomfortable to me, right? I think that's especially true, and I've proven that in my life so many times, right? I'm really interested in this hypnotherapy process. Can you kind of explain a little bit more what it is, and like what the app kind of does? What does it look like?
So in the app, we do 15 minutes a day of hypnotherapy. It's an audio that you just put some headphones on and you listen to. And then, so it's 30 minutes a day and 15 minutes of hypnotherapy, and then 15 minutes of conscious work. That hypnotherapy, it's very similar to a relaxation or meditation. And a lot of people have actually listened to those before, because they're very, very, very famous and very common for people to actually listen to. So it's not that weird or that different from other things that people have tried. And I actually get this asked a lot, like, is it powerful? Is it like in a bad way? Is it dangerous? Are there any side effects to hypnotherapy? Because we've seen hypnosis in movies and in theaters, and obviously that was just for the show, right? It's not how it works in therapy or in like a clinical like area, right? Field. So basically what that audio is you put those headphones in, and then you get into a deep state of relaxation, where all your worries and all that conscious noise just dials down its intensity. But you are still conscious, you're still aware of everything that's happening, which is something that a lot of people fear. Like, is it going to knock me out and then I'm not going to be able to remember what happened? No, you are conscious all the time, and you understand and listen to everything. But basically, the difference between hypnotherapy and meditation or relaxation is that hypnotherapy opens your mind to suggestions, right? So, for example, a lot of people have a drink when they're stressed. It's a very, very common thing to say, okay, I've had a very stressful day at work, and my mind just automatically thinks of having a glass of wine or two or a whole bottle. It really depends on the person. So that connection between stress and alcohol is pretty much automatic. And your mind, or all of our minds, have so many things to do in our bodies. Like they need to keep us alive, right? And there's so many things that we do, that our body does, that we don't think about, like breathing, like every internal organ has its own thing to do, and we don't realize, we don't think about it, right? So our brains want to optimize energy, so they can actually save part of that energy to send to those organs, right? So when we do something repeatedly, like for example, I'm stressed, then I drink a glass of wine, it's automatic. Like the brain creates a path between neurons, between brain cells, that is very reinforced, because the brain doesn't understand the difference between what's good for you and what's bad for you. It only understands the difference between something that you do very frequently and something that you don't do frequently. So when it reinforces that path between neurons, that is a connection that becomes automatic. So every time that you're going to be stressed, you're going to be thinking of alcohol straight away, because that is a path that is very, very reinforced, right? So what hypnotherapy does is open the mind to different paths between neurons. So little by little, that path that was created, that I'm stressed, then I'm going to have a glass of wine, loses its power. And then other alternative paths can have more and more power little by little, right? So in the end, when you're stressed, you're going to see many options instead of just seeing one, like that glass of wine, you're going to see options like calling a friend, or going for a walk, or baking a cake, or doing anything you want and anything that you enjoy doing, because your mind broadens and sees more than actually alcohol as the only solution.
Yeah.
So that's why it's very helpful, because people see this shift quite fast. Obviously you're not going to see it on the first day, but after 10 days people start seeing that shift, and that those options, right? And it's easier for them to actually choose something else rather than alcohol.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. It's kind of like this knee jerk reaction that I'm stressed, I'm going to drink. It's so true. You don't even think about it, and hence the unconscious part of the brain. And so it's just slowly rewiring these pathways. I think that you explained that very well. Thank you. This kind of area of therapy it's not studied entirely yet, right? So we don't really know. There's not a lot of science behind it. There's not a lot of data in regards to hypnotherapy and alcohol. But you were mentioning to me that there is some science out there right now.
Mm-hmm. So it's true that there's not a lot of studies that have actually linked hypnotherapy with treating alcohol, like alcoholism, or helping people reduce the alcohol intake. But hypnotherapy has been linked to many addiction recovery like pathways, or for treating other symptoms, like for example anxiety, as I was saying before, like anxiety, IBS. It was very, very common to treat like tobacco addiction some years ago. So even though there's not many data, or there's some data that is coming out now, like some studies that are coming out now between, like showing the link between hypnotherapy and alcoholism. The studies that show the success in hypnotherapy are more like considering addictions in general. But in the end, of course, each drug or each substance that you take or each behavior that you do is different, but your brain sort of reacts in a very similar way. So what works for one will work for the other generally. Like something like hypnotherapy will work for both, because your brain sort of gets attached to that. And maybe like for example, me as a person that drinks frequently, when I'm stressed, as I said before, the example that I was saying before, right? When I'm stressed, I drink, but then maybe when you're stressed, you gamble, or when you're stressed, you smoke. So those connections that I was talking about before are different in each person. They have a different behavior, a different consequence, but they all come from a very similar place. So that's why when you search about like hypnotherapy and how it can help different addictions, there's so many studies in many different addictions, and there's not many in alcoholism. But I found a study done in Norway that showed that people that did hypnotherapy sessions, when treating alcoholism, 1 year after, 80% of them had been completely abstinent for that whole year. Wow. So 80% is a very, very large number of people, right? So I think it's very effective, and it can be very, very helpful. And then in different addictions in general, or other behaviors, it's been proven. Obviously, it's very, very broad, but between 50% and 80% of like abstinence, or change in behavior, or all that as well. So I think it's a very, very powerful tool that it's worth considering.
Yeah, that's a great number. I mean, having been to treatment, they always tell us that there's this kind of standing statistic of 1 in 10 people will die or will make it. Sorry, 1 in 10 people will make it from this disease. There's like a 10% chance, right? So I mean, that's really promising. Journaling is a big part of my recovery. And I never really wanted to do it. It wasn't one of those things where I was like, I'm going to journal every day. Most things that I practice in my life today to recover are something that came from somebody before me, right? Something that was recommended to me either by a therapist or by a fellow alcoholic and addict. And so for me, what I found is, I had a hard time starting, like you mentioned before. There's this hurdle. It's like, and I could say the same thing about going to the gym, right? Or doing anything healthy. Sometimes I just need to get there because there's this fear of leaving my comfortable home and going into this uncomfortable state, right? And I find that happened with journaling too. It's like, well, where do I start? I don't know what to do. What kind of, what's the point? So where do you kind of tell people to start, or where does the app prompt you? How does it prompt you?
So the way that we work with journaling in the app is to complement that hypnotherapy part that I was talking about. And before, the hypnotherapy that we offered was general, which is still helpful, but it was more general, like so people could understand themselves. Like, for example, what do you do when you're angry, or how do you deal with this type of situation, or what are three things that you're grateful for today, right? And different things like that, which again, many programs out there do these questions or ask these questions to their users, and it works. Like, they're very effective. But we wanted to make it more targeted to actually helping the people understand themselves better and learning about their patterns, because when you know about your pattern, you're like 50% there. Like, you have gained so much once you know what's going on. You're halfway of the path is done. Like, when you know it and accept it, because knowing and accepting it can not come together sometimes, because some people know it but then they don't accept it as part of their reality, right? So what we do with our journaling is we take people into like a path of imagination, like different adventures that we call it, and then we put them into a different situation, like situations obviously all imaginary, that they have to think of how they would react, what would they do, and different things. And all these situations later on have they make sense, because in the end they will learn about their patterns, they will learn about how they make decisions, why they choose certain things, because each week it sort of is like a different adventure, and at the end of the week you understand a little bit more why you chose what you chose, and there's an explanation of everything. So again, there's no right or wrong, because everyone chooses their own thing, right? And everything is everything is good. You don't need to be thinking, okay, I should choose this, but my mind is telling me to choose the other thing, right? No, everything is fine. Everything is good. You just choose whatever your mind tells you to do, right? And again, when you learn about these patterns and how you process and all that emotion and what triggers different things, then you can actually start doing those changes. Because once you know it, knowledge is power. Once you know it, then you can actually address it. You cannot address what you don't know.
I couldn't agree more. And one thing that I learned from journaling, and this took some time, right? It didn't happen right away, but I was in treatment this last time, and I just journaled every day because they told me to, and just whatever was on my mind. I came to this conclusion, and it was pretty revelatory for me. It was a pretty profound moment. And this has happened a few times where I came to this realization that, what I told you about the chaos thing, I came to that realization in journaling, right? That I crave this kind of chaotic state in my life with drugs and alcohol to escape feeling me and having to look at myself in the mirror and atone for all the kind of bad things that I did, right? Get through this guilt and shame was the underlying feeling. I felt bad about all the people I hurt, felt bad about hurting myself. I felt bad about relapsing after 8 years clean and sober. And so journaling, I was able to forgive myself for that, but I also was able to realize why I choose to pick up drugs and alcohol. And it was because I don't like this kind of mundane state. I need this sort of up and down crazy life to feel okay in my own skin. And then the other thing too that I was going to mention that I noticed too was, so in my active addiction, I like to hang out with, and I've heard that this is pretty universal with people like me. We kind of choose these, I hate using this term, but in one of the literatures that I read, it calls it lower companions, right? These sort of people that are using more than I am. They're partying harder than I am. They're using harder drugs than I am. They're drinking more than I am. And I always liked to hang out with these people, I've realized, because I feel better about myself, right? And at least I'm not doing heroin, or at least I'm not drinking, 10 bottles a day. I'm not that bad. It's okay, buddy. Like you're not that bad. You can and it was just this justification to kind of keep going and live the life that I was living. Or they're stealing way more than I am. So at least I'm not stealing from the government, right? And I came to those conclusions all through journaling. And it was a pretty, euphoric eureka moment for me. And that's why I continued to do it today. And again, I don't have these moments every day where I'm like, oh my God, it all makes sense now. Like that's not the case, right? But through time and effort, I have come to these realizations, and it's a beautiful thing, because now, like you said, I'm 50% of the way there. I've realized it. Well, what are you going to do about it? Right? Just because you realize something doesn't mean it's going to change. I have to do something about it. So when I go to the state of boredom, or I'm not enough, life's not enough, I should be making more money, I should be more successful, I should be helping more people, I should be more sober, even I should have more clean time, right? I have these thoughts that now I can kind of say to myself, oh, I'm doing that thing again. And I just kind of laugh about it. I'm like, I'm doing that. My brain is doing that thing again, where it wants to be comfortable and it doesn't want to embrace pain. Right. So I can just embrace the pain now and be like, oh yeah, it's going to be okay. You're going to get through this. And then I always say is like, just get through the day, just get through the hour. And like you said, it's just getting through those hurdles, because that delayed gratification over the instant gratification is so much better in my experience, right? That just get through today, because tomorrow will be different. And it's always true. Tomorrow will be different. Just get to bed sober, clean, and tomorrow will be different.
Yeah, and what I always like to say is that we think that we see the world objectively, like life is as it is, right? And that is completely wrong. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are and as we see. So if you surround yourself by people that do more drugs than you, or drink more than you, then you have that sense of, okay, I'm not as bad as them, so I am okay, right? But then you're comparing yourself to something that you see very, very frequently. So your mind understands that that is your normality, quote unquote, right?
Your baseline. Yeah,
exactly. But if you lived a different life and then you don't see those people, then you would be like, the comparison would be like, you are the one that is having the most drugs compared to these group of people, right? Like these people. So it is all about perspective, and it's all about what you see and what you are exposed to. So I think that when people understand that and the subjectivity of the way that we live the world in our lives, I think it something clicks. At least it clicked for me, because then I was like, okay, there's no right or wrong. Like it's not that static, right? Like this is right, this is wrong. Exactly. It's not. There's so many colors in between, and maybe what might be right for me might not be right for another person. So I have to choose what's right for me, and to know that, I have to know myself, and I have to self-reflect and take my time to sit down and understand where my emotions are coming from and what I do to tackle them and to understand them, because it's so common in today's world to numb the emotions. And it doesn't need to be with like alcohol or drugs or other substances, or like behaviors like gambling and stuff like that. A lot of people do it with, for example, chocolate, which is obviously very accessible in any supermarket, or with, as I was saying before, scrolling on social media. And then we see people that are using their phones for 10 hours a day, and that is a lot, right? So everyone chooses their behavior differently, or everyone has their escape, a different escape, right? And understanding why you're doing that and what triggers that moment of, or that need of escaping, is, as you said before, is a eureka moment, because then you can actually target that and work on that.
Yeah. I love that. You are who you surround yourself with, right?
Exactly.
And I try to live by that today. My friend group in my circle today it doesn't matter what they have material wise. I look for people that are working on themselves every day. People that are constantly doing this inner work. Those are the people I want to be around, because that's what I need to do. Instead of looking externally, I need a car, I need a boat, I need a new, job. I have to look internally and find the kind of joy and peace that way. I love that. It's so true. Relapse is unfortunately a part of recovery. It's been a part of my life, slips, relapse. I want to, say I learned the difference between a slip and a relapse. A slip is kind of when you have like that one drink or that one pill or that one line, and you catch it right away and you jump back into recovery, right? The relapse is when you kind of fully indulge. And I don't think I ever really had many slips. Mine were full blown relapses because I never caught them and corrected them. And I was too far gone, right? This last time it took me 4 months to try and get back in. And those were 4 months of hell. It's a progressive disease. It always gets worse for me. I always pick up where I left off, and then it just gets way worse. I'm doing new drugs. I'm hanging out with, people I shouldn't be hanging out with. I'm going to nightclubs and bars that I have no business being at. How does the app kind of help users keep going if they have a slip?
So, as I was saying before, we never blame anybody. We never demonize alcohol or any other substance. We always understand that it's part of the process, and we encourage people to keep going. It's okay if you have a slip. It's okay if you have a drink, or like this app is targeted in alcohol, but it's okay if you have a slip in with any other substance or behavior. It's okay if you drink, because it's part of the process. You're going to have your ups and downs, and understanding them and giving space to them is also part of your growth and the journey, because it cannot be as easy as just like quitting or deciding to reduce alcohol and never feeling that craving or that that need to have a slip, or worse, right, going deeper into it. So the way that we do it is, again, reinforcing that they're doing a great job, because if the program is 90 days long, but the first 30 days is completely like no alcohol at all. But if you have alcohol during those 30 days, we say that's completely fine. Keep going, because by day 30, you will have drunk way less than what you drank the month before. Because if you had 1, 2, 3, 4 drinks in this month, compared to the month before, where maybe you had 20 or 15 or even like 10, that is progress. That is something that is changing in your mind. You are actually shifting. And if you keep working on it, you are gonna actually get somewhere, right? If you give up when you have one drink, then you're not doing any progress, right? So that's why we're very open to people having these moments. Of course, the less you drink, the better, right? But we're never going to blame anybody or make anybody feel like they're failed when they had one drink, when maybe they could not have give the space to that urge or that craving that they were having, right? Because sometimes, as I said before, they're very powerful. And again, the program is 90 days, and some people choose to not drink during all those 90 days. So the program sort of looks the same all those 3 months, but then on day 30, they can choose if they want to moderate as well. So we give tools to people so they can understand, again, what triggers their urge to drink, when like their emotional state when they drink, and we also keep like a drink tracker, so they can be very aware of the amount of alcohol that they have or that they want to have, right? So knowledge is power. So when you know your the why, when you know your triggers, when you know your emotional state, and when you know all these things, then you can actually understand better your use of alcohol and yourself, so then you can actually create change, right? But as I always say, moderation is way more difficult than going completely dry. I always think that moderating, when you've used alcohol more, when you go to moderating, you always have to be very on top of it, and you always have to revise yourself.
It's stressful, yeah.
Yeah, because I always tell people, like, I don't know how you do it, because for me it's easy. It's no alcohol, okay, it's out of the picture. And when you don't have the option, it's your mental load just like calms down, it reduces by half. But then when someone is choosing to moderate, they always need to be on top of what they're doing. Am I drinking today? Am I not going to drink today? Why am I drinking today? How many drinks will I have?
Right.
And you always have to be like balancing it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's so true. Or I'm going to say I have I have a social engagement tonight, so I'm going to save my 2 drinks for tonight. I just got to get through to the, that social party. And then you have 3 and you're like, oh, I was only supposed to have 2. And it's so true. It's so much easier just to call it off completely. I love that 30-day idea too, because I'm just thinking about that. Like, if you can control your drinking, and 30 days will tell you a lot about yourself, a lot. If you focus on your drinking in 30 days, you're going to learn a lot about yourself, right? Wow, I didn't realize that I had one after work every day. I didn't realize that I had 5 before noon even. I didn't even realize, And so I love that. I think 30 days is a really good indicator of, hey, maybe I want to stop doing this altogether, or maybe I can control it and moderate that. So it's a great test, Living, I want to talk about living intentionally. What does living intentionally mean to you today?
For me, is understanding what I want to do with my life and how I want to spend the time that I'm in this earth, right? Because I feel like everyone lives on autopilot, and we don't think that we're going to die someday. But the truth is, we don't even know if we're going to be here tomorrow, right? So I'm very like, I always go back to living in autopilot, and I keep bringing myself back to this thought of, no, okay, how do you want to live life? What do you want to spend time doing, and what you don't want to spend time doing? Because sometimes I've found myself forcing myself to do stuff that I didn't want to do, or in situations where I didn't want to be in, or staying longer somewhere where I would have been better just leaving, I don't know, 3 hours before I left, right? So to do that, of course, I need to revise myself constantly and understand where my priorities are at the moment, because obviously these priorities change the older that I get, right? So for me, living intentionally is giving space to understand how I want to spend my time, my limited time on earth.
Yeah, time is the most valuable thing, I always say that. And it really is the only thing that we got, and the only thing that could be taken away in a moment. We never know. That's why this one day at a time thing is so powerful. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow, like you said. So how am I going to live my best life today? And my best life is different than your best life, is different than my wife's best life. It's different for everybody. And so that's why it's important to do this self-discovery. Sylvia, if there's someone out there listening that doesn't know if they want to stop, but their life they're starting to have consequences as a result of drinking, right? Losing the job, losing relationships. For me, losing my sanity, right? Like losing my goals, my aspirations, all these things were just crumbling in on me. Finances were through the roof. What's one small thing that anybody can do today?
Something that is accessible, maybe not easy, but accessible, very accessible, is when you're going to pour yourself a drink, or when you're going to ask, like you're going to a bar to ask for another drink, or when you're in a situation where you're actually going to have another glass of wine or another beer or another whatever you're having, ask yourself, like stop and ask yourself, why? Do I actually want this? Or is it because I'm stressed? Is it because I am for pre-pressure because everyone else around me is drunk? Or is it because I am trying to numb something that is worrying me, right? And I said that it's accessible but not easy, because sometimes it's very, very painful to understand where this is coming from, right? But I think that when people understand their whys, again, they can actually start shifting their behaviors, right? And understanding more how they want to live life. So for me, the first step is always stopping and understanding where this is coming from. And again, you might not know the first, 5-10 times. You might not know, because if you have never taken the time to understand yourself, it's something very new, right? So given the time to work on it, will grow, will come with time, but you actually need to understand or like ask yourself why frequently, so then you can actually get to a response that can actually help you.
I love that. I always ask myself, what is my motive here? What is my motive? What am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to fit in, like you said, or can I actually just not stop because of said emotion and I'm stressed? I think that that's a very practical tip that anybody can try. And it's not easy, like you said, because when you're in it, sometimes, what's the point? But if you build that muscle over time, it's like going to the gym. It's really, you're going to suck at first when you're lifting weights, anything new, right? Paddleboarding was one for me. I got into paddleboarding and, I sucked at first, but over time you build that muscle, you keep doing it over and over again. And then hopefully you come to a point of realization where this isn't serving me. This isn't benefiting me. Maybe I can do something else instead, like go for a walk or try a new hobby or connect with a friend. Like you said, pick up the phone. Sylvia,
and definitely, the last thing I was going to say is,
please.
And sometimes we think that the reason behind our urge to drink is very, very deep. Like, for example, that emotion or trying to fit in and all this. But I realized, obviously, during these 6 years that I've been navigating this, I realized that sometimes, now that, for example, we're approaching hot summer days and all that, I remember I just was craving something refreshing. So I would be like, I really craved like a refreshing cocktail or like a cold beer or something like that. And then I was like, what if I just have something different that is also refreshing? And then I realized that that's what I was craving. I was craving that nice drink that was a bit like, a bit different from water or like a soda,
right,
but would actually give me that, like freshness, right? In a hot summer day. So it doesn't need to be a very deep reasoning. It can be as easy as you just want something fresh, or you just want something sweet, or anything like that. So sometimes you don't need to go that deep, but the more you ask yourself why, the more reasons you'll see, and then the more you understand what triggers those urges, right?
That's a great point. That is a phenomenal point. I come to a realization too that, I just like soda water, this sparkling water, that oftentimes I'm just thirsty and I just want, a refreshing drink. I love that. It's so true. Sylvia, thank you so much for your time. Time is a valuable thing. I think what you're doing is a beautiful and important journey. You've given us a lot of practical, helpful tips that we can implement in our lives. And where can we find you, and where can we find the app?
So the app, if people search Unconscious Moderation in App Store or in Google Play, they will find it. And if they have more questions about how the program works, who's behind it and all this, I always suggest having a look at the website, which is um.app, so um.app. Everything is explained there. There's so much information that is very, very relevant. And if anybody has any question that is not responded in the website, there's also a contact form that they can send any questions that they have, and we'll be happy to respond. We're also on social media like Instagram. So I encourage everyone to just feel free and have a look.
Love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your words of, experience, strength, and hope. And there is another solution, there is another way. So thank you for what you do. And until next time, I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening. Please help us grow the channel and like, share, and subscribe for more content. The discussions and stories shared on this podcast are for informational and motivational purposes only. This content is not a substitute for professional medical advice, addiction treatment, or therapy. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please consult a licensed physician, addiction specialist, or mental health professional. You are no longer alone.